TV career was unbelievable. Thousands upon thousands. I mean, the number of times he was on television was utterly ridiculous, phenomenal. And that aspect of his career has been ignored completely. I've found an autobiography that I've never read for a variety of reasons. And he just went from job to job to job. And latterly, as the film business in England dissipated, as it did around about 1954, I think he did more and more television. And I didn't realize a mass of radio. I didn't realize he'd been doing lots of radio shows as well. But yes, he worked with, he seemed to be one of the go-to actors for working with comics. So you'd have a comic, they always surround themselves with really good comedy actors as feeds. So he'd worked with Benny Hill, he worked with Frankie Howerd, he worked with Arthur Haynes, he worked with Charlie Drake. All the shows, I mean, all the series, he was go-to man. Harry Worth, big mate of Harry Worth, in all of them, in the Here's Harry, was there from the inception of those, and they were very good pals indeed. They somehow just hit it off. I think Harry was from Barnsley, and my father, after he'd been demobilised, had spent several months in Barnsley, so I had a sort of affinity for the area. But Harry was very funny, and my dad could be very, very funny. So it was just a wonderful light-heartedness to my father that conveyed itself to everybody. But not that he would take the mickey when doing a serious thing. He was very professional on set. Obviously, was dismayed in this autobiography that I found. He dismayed if he'd ever try or forget the lines or muck it up. And there's a wonderful story with Michael Powell having a go at him for drying, and in which I must do something with this autobiography, because there's some fantastic stories, some fantastic people that he worked with that I had no clue that he'd been working with. But Lewis Milestone, who did All Quiet on the Western Front, Raoul Walsh in Horatio Hornblower, who had an eye patch and just spat at everybody, and was convinced that my father was an actor called Patrick Doonan, which he, even at the interview, he kept calling him Doonan, and the casting director had snow in it, Sam Kydd. It didn't make any difference. He was always Doonan, and he was Doonan on the set. Or Doonan, nice to see you doing this scene with us. Good to see you. He said he gave up in the end. He said he accepted that he would be called Doonan for the rest of the shoot.
He would try and cram as much work in as was possible. If he had a couple of days off in the middle of a film, he would try and get onto another film. The chances were always slim, as it would require the studio not to be too far away and the part to be a relatively small one with not too many scenes. And the director had to be very understanding of the actor's lot and give him permission. In his book, he speaks of the planets all aligning themselves perfectly, and he actually managed to do 3 at once. Here we are. I played the part of a cowboy in my next film. It was a John Baxter production called Ramsbottom Rides Again, starring Arthur Askey and Sidney James. Sidney was a bandit leader, and I was one of his gang, or should I say his posse. It was intended to be an highly comical vehicle, Arthur's quote, and John Baxter, as ever, was open to suggestions. I was called to Beaconsfield for Ramsbottom Rides Again on November the 3rd and again on the 4th. To my surprise, whilst at Beaconsfield, on the afternoon of the second day, I had a telephone call from Jack Lee, the well-known film director, who was busy making A Town Like Alice at Pinewood. Jack wanted to know whether I would possibly work for him for 2 days during the coming week, preferably on Monday and Tuesday. Incidentally, the distance between Pinewood and Beaconsfield is 3 miles by car, it's about 5 miles. If he'd suggested Wednesday or Thursday, it would have been completely out of the question, because I was already contracted to Daniel Angel and Lewis Gilbert for Reach for the Sky, starring Kenneth Moore. Although it seemed highly unlikely I'd be able to do the Pinewood job, I intimated to Jack Lee that I would ask John Baxter and let Lee know the result as soon as possible thereafter, in order to give him time to contact his second choice if my answer was in the negative. To my amazement and delight, after consulting the script, John Baxter said I could fit it in, providing I went to Beaconsfield first on the Monday and finished off with him on the Tuesday afternoon. Naturally, I'd told him about my commitment to Reach for the Sky as well. I rang Jack Lee's production office, giving them the good news, and was informed that the script would be delivered to me immediately by messenger. The scene, they said, was a moving one, charged with emotion, which involved my picking up Virginia McKenna in a Jeep at the Wagga Wagga airfield in her search for Peter Finch at Alice Springs. It seemed that the actual shots of the Jeep, of which I was to be the driver, had already been done in Australia, and Mr. Lee had said I would be absolutely right for it. At that time, my diary for the week read thus: Monday the 7th of November, called for 8 a.m, Beaconsfield, Ramsbottom Rides Again. Arrived Pinewood at 4:30 p.m. for A Town Like Alice, worked overtime. Tuesday, the 8th of November, called for 8 a.m. Pinewood after quick sandwich lunch arrived by car at Beaconsfield. Wednesday, the 9th of November, called to Pinewood for Reach for the Sky, Lewis Gilbert's Bader epic. Thursday, the 10th of November, called to Pinewood for Reach for the Sky. Friday, the 11th of November, retake A Town Like Alice. Quite a busy and hectic week.
I'm sorry you've had to wait so long, sir. Shouldn't be long now, though.
That's all right. It'll be worth waiting for.
How did it feel going back to Central Flying School again, sir?
I enjoyed it. Have you heard anything about my medical, Mr. Blake?
I think the wing commander's got all the reports, sir.
Hope they send me back to fly with my old squadron.
Flying Officer Barder?
Yes?
Wing Commander Hargreaves will see you now.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck, sir.
And of course, he made thousands of television appearances. I kid you not. Thousands in a 36-year TV and film career. He was great at both comedy and drama. He was a wonderfully sympathetic actor. His life experiences allowed him to convey a great sense of understanding and warmth, despite, but probably because of what he'd gone through in the war. And he had great timing.
You look like Father Christmas.
Well, it's the one I always use as Father Christmas.
Well, you can't use it tonight. All you need is a small goatee.
Oh, goat. I thought I might bring one of them on. Might be rather amusing.
And what do you think you look like? And what's that? Pooh, the smell.
Manure.
Oh. What are you doing with manure?
Well, you said I'd be farmer of the jury.
Not farmer, foreman.
So, his tellies. Now look, I'm utterly scratching the surface here. Crane, Messmates, Orlando, Dixon Dock Green, Shadow Squad, No Hiding Place, Softly Softly, Z-Cars, Man in a Suitcase, Persuaders, Adventurers, Avengers, Out of the Unknown, Take a Pair of Private Eyes, Knight Errant, Curry and Chips, Benny Hill Show, Arthur Askey Show, Charlie Drake Show, Harry Worth Show, Jimmy Edwards Show, Tony Hancock Show, Eric Sykes Show, Arthur Haynes Show, Frankie Howard Show, Dick Emery Show, Tommy Cooper Show, Fred the Burglar, Dad's Army, The Army Game, Play for Today, Armchair Theatre, Crossroads, Coronation Street, Play School, Follyfoot, etc., etc. What a CV. And a lot of them, not just one-offs, but series. 39 episodes of Crane, 26 episodes of Orlando, 39 episodes of Messmates, 6 Fawcett Saga, 6 Curry and Chips. I've no idea how many Crossroads and Coronation Street he did. And then, of course, BBC Radio on masses of that, Mrs. Dale's Diary, Edgar Wallace stuff, Jimmy Edwards Show, plays, comedies, documentaries, masses of post-syncing, a lot at Delane Lee in Soho, where he dubbed other actors in films who were incomprehensible or unavailable, like Town Like Alice, which he's in as well. And I didn't know this when I read my dad's book. He dubbed the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night for Dick Lester, several characters in that. He was an actor who was loved by millions, who looked forward to seeing him on TV or the silver screen. There were Sam Kydd competitions where people would bet on whether he was in a film or not on TV, and mobbed him in the streets. The Orlando character was featured in TV Comic. When he and I went to Stamford Bridge to watch Chelsea, who I think are playing at this exact moment, he was always surrounded by crowds of people, many wanting to shake his hand and many shouting out, "Lend us a quid, Sam."